Before we begin, I just want to say I am on the verge of tears. This worship service is gorgeous. Just look at the light that is coming off here. Look at the person who stood up and insisted that this congregation finish the song. Very powerful, and that we are gathered in a sanctuary, in a place that we co-create every time we gather. This is an intense morning. And the topic of joy was chosen a couple of weeks ago, and it provides a really amazing opportunity to think into who we are and how we are. And before we begin, I would just like to ask everyone to take a deep breath in, and just exhale. There's a day coming soon when you won't be able to do that, so enjoy it while you have it. This sermon or message is in 7 parts, 7 acts. Act 1. Somewhere back in the 1800s, legendary showman P.T. Barnum, who was a card-carrying Universalist, namesake of the Ringling Brothers and Barnum Bailey Circus, and who, based on his anti-slavery views, switched political parties from Democrat to Republican in 1854, uttered this kernel of wisdom, quote, "No one ever went broke underestimating the intelligence of the American people." Act 2. For the past several years, we Unitarian Universalists have been engaged in a vigorous re-examination of our principles and sources that culminated in the overhaul of the visual and linguistic representation of Unitarian Universalist values. This process went by the shorthand Article 2, and I encourage everyone to go to the UUA website and take in the material. To provide a briefing, the word love is at the center of this religion, and radiating out from that core value are 6 other shared values: interdependence, equity, transformation, pluralism, generosity, and justice. Now, within the supporting text that explains the value of justice, we find this sentence, quote, "We support the use of inclusive democratic processes to make decisions within our congregations, our association, and society at large." Act 3. For the sake of argument, let's consider society at large as the population of the United States of America, the world's oldest functioning democratic republic. What if, quote unquote, society at large is half filled with people who see the world differently than you? What if, quote unquote, society at large is half filled with people who diligently do their research and arrive at a decision that is equal and opposite of what you think or believe deeply in your heart and in your mind? What if society at large elects a candidate that makes you feel dread or anger or disbelief or nausea or a swirling combination of all those feelings? It is quite likely that approximately half of society at large this Sunday morning in the United States is feeling a swirl of dread or anger or disbelief or nausea, while the other half is feeling pretty good, thanks, perhaps even joyful. Act 4. This morning we're going to present an absurdist play entitled "I Don't Get It." Originally drafted a few weeks ago using a stubby lottery pencil and pieces of scrap paper in an airport hotel in Buffalo, New York. Now, to set the scene for this play, we'll set up here, the action takes place in the United States of America, the world's oldest democratic republic, during the autumn of 2024. There are two human beings in this play. They're going to be enjoying an evening stroll in a small town in a so-called swing state. Weather is perfect. There is a consequential election on everyone's mind. There is fatigue over the bombardment of political ads on radio and television, computers and phones, and a palpable anxiety rising with each passing day. Political signs and flags and stickers displayed on lawns and windows and cars and flagpoles, and if you counted the signs and the flags and the stickers, they're about evenly split between the two major parties' candidates. Rest assured, there are many houses and cars that show no affiliation to anyone. Now, the gender and the race of these two characters in this play cannot be clearly distinguished by any of the usual clues of clothes or voice, body type, or mannerisms. They may be male, female, non-binary, transgender, black, white, brown, immigrants, whatever. They each have a brain and a heart. They have eyes that see and ears that hear. They each have a nose that can detect the beautiful aroma of this autumn evening. They have a body that is graced with the ability to walk. And if you ask these human beings, they would say, yes, I have a soul. They both love their families. They each have jobs they like well enough. Each person is an engaged citizen, each dialed in, as it were, to the upcoming election. And because they live in a swing state, their vote is highly sought after because, after all, the United States is a democratic republic, and the presidential election is decided by the Electoral College as opposed to a simple majority of voters. Excuse me. Now, our two voters, they are registered to vote, they both plan to vote, they occasionally attend religious services, and they find protection and comfort by watching religiously their respective television news outlets. And in the spirit of being fair-minded, on occasion they will switch channels and take in and to consider what the other side is watching. They find it hard to believe what they see and hear on that other channel. The presentations are shrill, condescending, and truth be told, stupid and wrong. If pressed, they would self-describe as partisans. They enjoy a good laugh at the expense of the other party's candidates. Now, that said, these two people walking on this gorgeous evening, they have been friends since childhood. They genuinely like each other. They enjoy talking and laughing together. They grew up in the same neighborhood. They attended the same schools. They played together. They still talk about how scared they were during a sleepover when they watched that old black and white movie, The Wolfman. And they dutifully attend funerals and write sympathy cards when one of their family members dies. English, their mother tongue. Neither speak another language. Each have a passport, but they have expired. They used to read books. Now they read their phones. Fade in. Warm evening light. Two figures stroll along a neighborhood sidewalk. Friend number one stops, points at a lawn sign for a presidential candidate, and scoffs, "I don't get it." "I'm with you," friend number two says, pointing at a sign on a different lawn showing support for the opposing presidential candidate, and says, "I don't get it." They look at each other and both ask simultaneously, "You don't get it?" "Is that a question?" friend one asks. "You tell me," friend two says. I think it's one of those questions where the answer is right there in the question. We don't get it. If you say that we don't get it, are you insinuating that we're stupid? No. I'm not insinuating at all. You and I are not stupid per se. It's just like what that circus guy Barnum said way back when. No one ever went broke underestimating the intelligence of the American people. I resent that comment. Do you think we said I don't get it because neither of us care that the opposing candidate is a fascist or a radical liberal or a racist or lazy or crazy or a Marxist or a communist, a narcissist, low IQ, weird? They're all insults that were hurled during this election. Or did we say, I don't get it, as a prelude to try and get it and genuinely understand why anyone would vote for a politician that makes the other person nauseous? Hey, whoa. I said, I don't get it. I know what I said. Okay. Well, I said the exact same words, but I said it in a different way. Well, how did you say exactly? I said, I don't get it. Like a curious social scientist wandering into a problem. And you said, I don't get it. Like an incredulous cynic casting judgment to reinforce your particular belief system. Are you sure that's what I said? That's what I heard. Exactly. What I said and what you heard can be two radically different things. I'll give you that. But I'll ask you point blank, do you want to get it? Friend number one and friend number two stand staring at each other in silence. The sun sets, darkness rises. Continue to stare at each other. Television lights flicker in the neighborhood's windows. Close curtain. Act 5. A Unitarian Universalist walks into a bar. I know that sounds like a setup for a joke. It's actually a statement of fact. A few weeks ago, I was in an empty bar in a small Rust Belt town in western New York. It's important to note that this bar is located less than 30 short miles from where the writer Salman Rushdie was brutally attacked by a knife-wielding religious extremist. At the end of the bar, this short 7-word sign posted so all patrons can abide by its decree. No politics or religion at the bar. It is important to note each letter capitalized, each letter in bold, the first word no in bright stop sign red. I order a drink and I ask, do you ever have to enforce that sign? Oh yeah, she says. We want everyone to feel welcome here. I ask her how she enforces the no politics or religion at the bar decree, and she says, well, that's pretty simple. If conversations start to flare up, I just point at the sign and trust that people can read English. The bartender is a woman, mid-30s, and we get to chatting about the many tattoos festooning her arms. I love talking with people about their tattoos. If you have a tattoo, please see me after the service. She also lets me know about all the other tattoos not currently visible, including a very large tattoo on her back. What's the back tattoo? I ask. It's the Serenity Prayer. Interesting choice for a bartender, I say. Well, that prayer helps me a lot, she says. So I like to carry it with me everywhere I go. Act 6. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference. The Serenity Prayer, which was written by Reinhold Niebuhr, is considered the most famous and beloved prayer of the 20th century. I love this idea, and I love this other Niebuhr quote. Humor is, in fact, a prelude to faith, and laughter is the beginning of prayer. Again, humor is, in fact, a prelude to faith, and laughter is the beginning of prayer. Now, may you be blessed with hearty laughter, genuine prayer, and deep serenity during the rest of your days living in our democratic republic. Act 7. During a speech at the Democratic National Convention, one of the most popular people in the world, whose name begins with O, spread her arms wide and exclaimed, "Joy!" She was a little higher than I was. At the first rally after the convention, the Democratic candidate for vice president and the presidential candidate said to the presidential candidate in front of thousands of people, "Thank you for bringing back the joy." Now, the idea of joy coursing through such a consequential election was such a bright and refreshing counterposture to the doomy, gloomy threats and raw anger hammered on and hammered on and hammered on and hammered on by the political opposition. They are eating the dogs. They are eating the cats. They are eating the pets of the people that live there. These doomy, gloomy threats and raw anger intended to inculcate fear and to continue the corrosive and polarized us-them binary. Joy, as a political message, is the exact opposite and welcome opposite of fear and anger and corrosive polarization. Now, with all that joy in the political air at that time, I got to wondering, what is joy? What is it? So I reached for this book called How Philosophy Can Save Your Life, with a great subtitle, 10 Ideas That Matter Most, because the author concludes her list of 10 ideas with joy. Imagine joy as a philosophical idea that can save your life. Now, philosopher Marietta McCarty writes, quote, "Philosophers nibble at the corners of joy, but they find it hard to articulate its essence." And then to help arrive at a definition, McCarty offers this very interesting exercise that I invite you and encourage you to do at some point during the week. She writes, quote, "Imagine that joy has sensory qualities and jot down your images. Our descriptions can serve as building blocks for our understanding of joy. What is the look of joy? Taste, sound, its touch, smell." I just love this turn to move away from that fiercely rational pin the butterfly on the board sort of definition with mere words and try to move toward a more holistic understanding by becoming mindful of our sensual understanding of joy. Now, that said, we do so love a good definition constructed with words. So here's the Oxford English Dictionary's definition. Quote, "Joy, a vivid emotion of pleasure arising from a sense of well-being or satisfaction, the feeling or state of being highly pleased and delighted, exaltation of spirit, gladness, delight." And now to set the stage, I actually read that definition from the OED off a phone while sitting in a parking lot. Great thing I could raise the text of that OED so I could actually read it. And I started to ask myself, I just started thinking about it, and I said, does joy have an indicator species, right? Or more broadly, what environmental conditions need to be present in order for joy to flourish? Like free-flowing rivers for a good salmon run or ancient forests for spotted owls. I'm wondering this, kind of thinking about it. I stepped out of my car and immediately gifted this vision: solar panels on the roof of a public library on a sunny autumn day. I just laughed out loud. joyfully. And then I went into the library and I visited the Friends of the Library bookshop, which was open for business. I love buying books at library bookshops, keep moving the love forward. And I browsed, they actually had a religion spirituality shelf, and I was browsing that shelf because I was deeply in research for this talk entitled Joy, with an exclamation point. And I quite literally squared my shoulders through the shelf, heart exposed to the spines, and I asked the universe, is there a book here that speaks to the subject of joy? And after scanning the available options, I have to do this when I'm scanning, I pulled down a book that felt promising, checked the index for the word joy, and here is the very first sentence from the introduction of David Brooks's book called The Second Mountain, The Quest for a Moral Life. Quote, every once in a while, I meet a person who radiates joy. Pause. This was a very Twilight Zone-y experience because there I was looking for joy, and bang, there it popped right off the shelf. And the experience came even more Twilight Zone-y when the theme song for the Twilight Zone and Beethoven's Ode to Joy started to intermingle. That's the only thing you're going to remember from this sermon. Now, finding those words at the exact moment that I needed them, it so bowled me over that I am compelled from universal decree to share a few more of David Brooks's fine words from the introduction. Quote, every once in a while I meet a person who radiates joy. These are people who seem to glow with an inner light. They're kind, tranquil, delighted by small pleasures, and grateful for the large ones. They've made unshakable commitments to family, a cause, a community, or a faith. They know why they were put on this earth and derive a deep satisfaction from doing what they have been called to do. When you meet these people, you realize that joy is not just a feeling, it can be an outlook. Now, later in the introduction, Brooks writes these two devastating and insightful sentences. Quote, our society has become a conspiracy against joy. It has put too much emphasis on the individuating part of our consciousness, individual reason, and too little emphasis on the bonding parts of our consciousness, the heart and the soul. Now, I think that we Unitarian Universalists, or Universalist Unitarians, as if you prefer as I do, we could read these words and see traits of our own religion's journey toward a greater inclusion and our articulated justice work, particularly anti-racist work, racism work. How the denomination is attempting to unpin the butterflies from the board and is now centering love as a single core word. And that word, love, it's still there, no matter the results of one election. Now, ours is a modern religion acting as a counterpoint to a conspiracy against joy. Because it seems to me that love, capital L love, which again centers this religion, is the ideal and necessary condition for a deep and authentic and lasting experience of joy. Or, better yet, as David Brooks suggests, having joy be an outlook. And capital L love takes capital W work. And more to the point, we, in this room, in this sanctuary, we are the heads and the hearts and the hands that construct this religion. We do the work, minute by minute, day by day, service by service, administration by administration, and it is we who create and nurture, center, and spread capital L love. And sometimes, we have to go out because we're called to do the work, even when we're nauseous. Joyfully, we say,